Why did we all of a sudden decide to sell?
So I just spent about 2 or 3 hours putting this thing back to stock.
That was only about $800-900 in negative equity.
We'll see if we end up making a deal with the dealership.
So we took delivery of the I'll be fully transparent. It did not end up a very good experience with that car. I really miss my EV6.
Hey everybody, I am on what I would call probably my last drive in the EV6. I'm actually headed to a dealership right now to see if I can work out a deal on a different car. So I did not expect to be in this position anytime soon. As you know, I was a fairly early adopter of the EV6. I've grown to really like them. Really like EVs. And this thing has been a pleasure to drive for exactly 3 years, basically this month. Ooh, there it is. But our circumstances have changed, so in this video I'm going to cover why we switched away from the EV6 and what other cars I looked at, and do I ever plan on going back to the EV6 in general. So let's get started. This is it for the EV6. I'm actually about to drive to the dealership. I just spent about 2 or 3 hours putting this thing back to stock. We'll see if we end up making a deal with the dealership, and if not, then I'll bring it right back home and slap everything back on it. Whoever ends up in this car will get these carbon fiber side skirts for free, and I just don't have time. You're also going to get the spoiler, and you're going to get the roof wrapped black. You're going to get blue calipers, which probably need a little bit of touch up. All back to stock. Just needs a little bit of detailing. All I know is I'm going to miss the torque on this car, because the car I'm looking at is nowhere near as quick as this. Yeah, doing this is just so pleasurable in an EV. Just being able to swerve in and out. Whoever gets my car is also going to get this fit cam, dash cam. So you're welcome. Here we are saying bye to the EV6. 3 years. 3 years.
All right, so 3 years later, 3 years of owning this EV6, making content on it, loving the car, why did we all of a sudden decide to sell? Number one was that our family needs were kind of changing. We have nieces and nephews around here, and we found ourselves taking 2 cars just because of one extra person. We decided that maybe a third row would be pretty useful. And we'd kind of been teetering with that in the first place. Before we bought the EV6, we were going to buy the Sorento because it had that smaller third row. That need has gotten a little bit stronger. Naturally, the question would have become, why didn't we buy the EV9? We'll cover that in a little bit. Number two, We are a fairly big road trip family. We're not like the Griswolds or anything like that. We do like to go on road trips. And what we were finding is that we just weren't taking any because we just didn't feel comfortable with the electric kind of infrastructure. Now, I know a lot of people have done it. I'm not saying it's not possible. You just plan and you just go, but we just didn't like the lack of confidence of chargers being down. We'd been waiting for the Tesla network to come back up and be compatible with Kia, and that just kept getting pushed off. It keeps getting pushed off. I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure it's coming this month, next month, whatever. So we were making a pretty big payment on a car that we just couldn't feel like we could take on a road trip. So that was a pretty big catalyst as well. Number three, small issues started arising, and I'll kind of line them up and then I'll talk about what we did about it. Number one, we had a ticking slash whirring noise coming from the rear motor every time we would accelerate, but it was a very audible ticking noise coming from the rear side of the car under acceleration. I read a couple other people that had the same problem. So I don't know how big that issue is or if it will become a bigger issue. There's people with 100,000 miles on these cars and have no issues whatsoever. Number two was our heater performance. Our heater would randomly stop working and just not heat. So it's kind of annoying, especially in the winter. There was times where we had to fumble with it and it would finally start heating. And number three, remote start. Remote started acting a little funny. We would try to remote start the car, it wouldn't work. So it was just kind of adding up to be a little bit frustrating, especially during the winter months. So I don't really have a good answer why we didn't take it to the dealer. We just have had bad experiences taking cars to dealerships and them diagnosing the problem. And I also didn't want them to blame the fact that mine was modded, even though none of that should affect all the things I did to it shouldn't affect the car. But anyway, that was my thing. I didn't feel like dealing with it. And it was just kind of another talking point to replace the EV6. Number four is the constant ICCU issue. So not everybody's experiencing it. I know it's a small percentage of EV6 owners that are experiencing it, but it's growing. And it was this looming thing that just kind of was on the side of my brain. I didn't want to be out in the middle of nowhere. I didn't want to be on a trip and dealing with ICCU stuff. Yes, they would have towed it. The car would have sat there. But the horror stories of people dealing with ICCU issues, taking 2 to 3 weeks, not getting loaners, it was just this lingering thing that was eating away at me. A lot of you might not be concerned. A lot of you know that it's under warranty, so it may not be an issue. I just did not like that kind of sinking feeling that maybe the ICCU is going to pop any day now. And lastly, I was worried about further negative depreciation. These cars were tanking. It already tanked right off the bat. I got a good deal on this car when I bought it. We'll talk about financials in a little bit. That being said, we sold the EV6, or we decided to trade it in. So where did that leave us? What did we look at? Some of you might be in the same boat. So I'm going to tell you what cars we looked at, why we eliminated which ones, and then which one we ended up with. So before we dive into the cars that we actually decided to look at, I wanted to talk about the things that we actually really wanted in a car. So number one was a third row. Obviously, I talked about that. We really needed a third row. Number two, somewhat agile. I wanted it to be a little sporty, and that kind of eliminates some of the cars that I'll talk about shortly. Number three, we wanted to be fairly tech-filled. The Kias came with a lot of tech. That's one thing Kia does really well, is they cram tech into these really nice price points. So we were kind of spoiled on that. Number four, wireless Android Auto and CarPlay. We hated having to use cables. We hated using adapters because they were wishy-washy. We used a bunch of different kinds. We just want it to be native. Pano roof, we kind of didn't have one in the EV6. We really want one now. It just makes the cabin feel a lot nicer. And number six, vented and heated front seats. That we have gotten used to. In Texas, you want both of them. So that was a big requirement. The last requirement really was being 22 or newer. Let's dive into the cars that we looked at. If there's anything you know about me, if you followed me for a while, if you follow my Instagram, I'm not a very brand loyal person. I don't really care generally what a brand of a car is. If a car is a good car, I'm going to go buy it or I'm going to look at it. So number one, the Explorer ST. Naturally, me coming from a very heavy tuner background, modifying background, the Explorer is the SUV everybody talks about. It's super quick for its size. It's moddable. It looks cool. It's bulky. It's big. It's got the third row. It literally checks off all the boxes. Number two, Volvo XC90. I love the Volvo XC90. I've always liked the way it looks. My friend has one. They look great. They have good tech. Number three, the Kia Sorento SX. Especially with the new refresh starting in 2024, we actually really like the way it looks, so we decided to keep that on the list. Number five, the traditional Germans, Audi Q7, BMW X5. Obviously great cars. Obviously have reliability concerns all the time with German cars, but generally really, really good cars, and they kind of tick the box for the enthusiast in me. And the next one was the Mazda CX-90 because it checked a few of the boxes that we wanted. So those are the cars that we looked at, but the cars we did not look at are the Telluride, the Ascent, Atlas, any of those. I just wanted something a little bit more spirited, I guess is the best way to put it. They're great cars. All of them have good reviews. My friends have them, and they're roomy, they're cool. They just bore me in the nicest possible way. So let's walk down those cars very, very quickly. So right off the bat, we eliminated the XC90 because we just couldn't find one in the price point that we wanted, with lower miles, with the packages that we wanted, with a warranty. So it just wasn't feasible to look at an XC90. The next one we eliminated was the Q7. My wife did not like the look of the Q7. I agree with her. I think it's the most bland looking Audi, but I get it because of the target segment. Although I really love that 3-liter turbo. I had it in my S4. And then the other car that we eliminated because of looks was the Mazda CX-90. I love the Mazda CX-90. I think it's a beautiful car. Proportions are great until you get to that rear end. And that's exactly where my wife's hang up was as well. It looks like it has mumps. The next one we eliminated was the X5. Similar issue to what the XC90 was. We couldn't find an X5 in our price point with lower miles, with the tech we wanted, and with a warranty. So we were just priced out, unfortunately. I think if our budget was 5 to 10K higher, we probably could have gotten a decent X5. We're very strict with our budget. That basically left the Explorer ST and the Kia Sorento SX Prestige. So I went to the Kia dealership, and they actually just happened to have a Ford Explorer ST in our price point parked there as well. I test drove the ST and I loved it. I didn't buy it right away, even though they were giving me a really good price on it. I went home and I did a lot of research. The Explorer STs are great. They're just not really known to be super reliable. And I know the forums are always filled with people who have worst case scenario, but the forums were full of problems. Part of the reason we were selling the EV6 is we didn't want this lingering, like, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? When I finally kind of decided that maybe we should look at it, they sold it. So they sold it within one day of me looking at it, even though it was on the market for 3 months. So then I went back and I looked at the Sorrentos they had. I wasn't 100% sold on it because I really just didn't want a 4-cylinder turbo, but we looked at it because we do like the car. And when we got there, they pulled out this beautiful midnight lake blue color I'd never seen before. Kia Sorento SX Prestige X-Line. My wife was out of town. I looked at it. I test drove it. It has a DCT transmission, which I love personally. It wasn't the most pleasant driving experience around town, but once you get on the highway, it was actually really nice. But it was a 24 with 16,000 miles on it, basically brand new inside. Like nothing had been touched. They gave us a really good trade-in, and it had a full warranty still from Kia. My wife came back. I showed it to her. We pulled the trigger. Here we are, unveiling the car that we actually purchased, which was this 2024 Kia Sorento SX Prestige X-Line. Top of the line model, super nice inside when it comes to features. So let's talk about finances, because I think that's a big question that comes up. How much of a hit did I take on the EV6? What was the deal I got? All those. I was lucky to get the EV6 3 years ago at MSRP, and my interest rate was super low. I think it was like a 1.9 or maybe a 2.1 or something like that. I'll be very transparent. We owed $21,500 on this EV6. Dealership that I traded my car and ended up giving us $20,500. They started at 19, and then we ended at $20,500. CarMax, I think they offered me 14. Carvana offered me 17. I actually feel like I came out pretty good. I was only about $900 in negative equity based on what they adjusted. And that wasn't that bad to me, considering what I've seen people sitting on. Those were the figures that we had. And that is why we actually ended up unloading the EV6. So we took delivery of the Sorento, and I immediately took it on a big road trip to Kansas City. I'll be fully transparent. It did not end up a very good experience with that car. I will say, in hindsight right now, I really miss my EV6, and we'll talk about that in the next video and why and what's going on with the Sorento and all those kind of things. Thank you so much for all the support for the last 3 years. This has been such an incredible journey. I hold that EV6 really close to my heart. It was the first car that I've ever had at SEMA. It was my first EV experience. It was actually fairly reliable, and it's just a really good looking car. I still see them. I still love them. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to end up in another EV6 because I've been looking again. Stay tuned for the next video, because more to come on just the EV6 experience and maybe a potential future buy, but a lot more to come on why the Sorento ended up being a mistake. If you have any questions, anything about my journey here, please let me know, and I look forward to talking to you guys on the next video. Thanks. Bye.